President Trump has conditioned the U.S. nuclear deal with Saudi Arabia on Riyadh normalizing relations with Israel. A day after the deal was signed, President Trump said the deal would take effect only if Saudi Arabia joined the U.S.-brokered Abraham Accords. Saudi Arabia has long rejected joining the accords until a Palestinian state is recognized. Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, said Trump had spoken with Gulf and Arab allies many times about pegging the deal to the Abraham Accords, and that if the kingdom does not join them, the deal is off.
He wants to see these countries sign the Abraham Accord. It was one of the most historic accomplishments of his first term, and it continues to be a long-term goal of his to expand those accords to ultimately come to a place where the Middle East can be a peaceful and stable region.
Leavitt said Trump has raised this issue with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman in the past. Leavitt did not directly answer a question on why Iran doesn't get a similar civilian nuclear deal.
Why does Saudi Arabia get a civilian nuclear deal, but Iran doesn't get a civilian nuclear deal?
Well, again, this agreement is still being worked out. It will eventually, hopefully, be finalized with the condition that the president spoke about this morning. But this agreement in particular, as it's been discussed thus far, does give priority access for American companies in the Saudi nuclear energy program, which will ultimately benefit American industry workers and supply chains. So the deal that has been discussed thus far and will continue to be discussed absolutely puts America first, and that's obviously very important to this president.
The agreement was signed on Wednesday by U.S. Energy Secretary Chris Wright and his Saudi counterpart. The Trump administration did not release details of the deal, but said that the deal is designed to expand commercial cooperation with Riyadh while ensuring that Saudi Arabia's nuclear program follows strict safety and non-proliferation standards. The office of the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has called Saudi Arabia's possible entry into the Abraham Accords a historic step forward. The current deal is as a result of nuclear negotiations that began under the Biden administration. The broader discussions included a defense treaty and required Saudi Arabia to sign a peace deal with Israel. But the current agreement was signed separately from any such peace deal with Israel, and there is no indication its text formally links the two. However, the current agreement was signed separately from any such deal. Trump has surrendered some of the leverage he could have used to push Saudi Arabia towards normalizing relations with Israel. Saudi Arabia maintains it will not normalize relations with Israel unless the Israeli government commits to an irreversible and time-bound path towards a Palestinian state. The Abraham Accords are a U.S.-backed initiative launched during Trump's first term to establish diplomatic relations between Israel and several Arab countries. The accords led to the normalization of relations between Israel and the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Morocco, and Sudan back in 2020. Let's move on now. U.S. Justice Department has withdrawn subpoenas issued to the New York Times in connection with reports about the security of Air Force One. This comes after the newspaper had challenged government requests for phone records of reporters and grand jury testimony as an attempt to intimidate the press and filed a motion to have them quashed. Now, according to the Times, federal prosecutors agreed to unilaterally withdraw the subpoenas during a court hearing. Lawyers who are representing the Times have argued that the government's actions violate the most basic First Amendment protections for news-gathering activity and called it part of a series of attacks on journalists to intimidate them from engaging in reporting that the Trump administration openly detests. The issue stems from a New York Times report which claimed that the Qatari-donated Air Force One lacked certain security features, including anti-missile defense systems. President Trump, however, dismissed those security concerns, saying the aircraft was being sent to a British air base so it could be viewed by U.S. troops. But later, the president also said the plane will be sent away for about a month to be maxed out without explaining what upgrades or modifications will be carried out.